about knowledge, but then unless you have the skill, it is not possible to do anything. So, for example, no, I tell my husband that skill is very important. He said, what is so great about cooking? I can do it. So you said you mix this, mix that, and then you have produced something. No, in the Tamil there is a saying, I don't know, there must be a Kannada equivalent proverb, Yetu Churakai Karikodavadu. Is there a Kannada equivalent? That is, pardon? Meaning is, suppose I write sorekai on the paper, I can't make a sabji out of that written on the paper. So that is the meaning of the Tamil proverb, Ettu Churakai Karikudavadu. So many people know, for example, my husband is an electrical engineer. He knows how to derive the formula, teach the children and everything. And when it comes to fixing a fuse, when the fuse blows off, he can't do it. No, you can be a motor mechanical engineer. He will go and teach all the theories and everything, and the car stalls in the road, you call the chokra in the garage, he will come and set it right. This happens every place. No? So knowledge is different from skill. Skill is the ability to do something, and knowledge is only you have the, we need both. You need some people who will generate the knowledge, so that knowledge is applied and you develop the skill to implement those knowledge into a product. So we need both, all the three things, knowledge, attitude and skill. So in the morning we had sessions where they gave us very interesting understanding of this whole thing, and then somebody said technical matter, he described it in a technical way. I mean, somebody can only describe technical matter in a technical way, but that's not going to help us if we don't have the background of the ability to understand technical things. There are some teachers who are extremely fine, even the most complicated technical matter, they'll put it in such a common parlance that anybody without any technical knowledge can understand that. Some people, on the other hand, to show off their scholarship and knowledge, make even simple things very complicated so that he looks more scholarly than what is actually required to the audience to whom you are addressing. Suppose you are addressing a theoretical physics conference in New York or whatever it is, you have to show off that you know the theory behind everything. But then when you are teaching somebody a basic things, you don't have to show off that your knowledge of the scholarship on this. So it can be made available, knowledge can be made available in a simplified version. That's what our speaker also said. If I had the time, I would have made this knowledge available to you in a simplified form. So knowledge can be transmitted in a technical way, or knowledge can be transmitted in a very simplified form. And the other speaker, when we just came in, I don't know who it was, one of your police personnel, he was talking about the criteria for letter of rogatory. I don't know, I've never heard this word before. So he gave a list of criteria of free from political motives, specify nature of evidence, specify the database, authorized jurisdictional magistrate, routed through diplomatic channel, be in prescribed format. It's okay, the criteria is all there, but in actual reality, what happens is you have several barriers which prevent you from exercising all these criteria that has been prescribed. For example, how do you free yourself from political motives? I mean, I have heard several, especially I'm addressing police people, the major cry of the police is there is so much of political interference in our functioning, we are not able to function the way if you are given the freedom, autonomy to do what we want to do, we will do it. Can you wish away the political interference? I'm asking you frankly, this is no politician here. We are all talking to each other, learning, trying to learn from each other. Is it easy to wish away the political interference? There is so much of police reforms have been Many police reform studies are there. Volumes have been written about police reforms. And then when it actually comes to implementation, what is there in the policy and what is actually gets implemented, it's a very big gap. Let's be frank about it. So what is the problem is, it's easy to lay down the criteria, but very difficult to implement what has been designed to be implemented. So what we are trying to do here is, how do we develop the attitude? Because I'm talking about capacity building. Knowledge, as he said, you can go to the website, you can go to the internet, you can attend workshops like this, you can call knowledgeable people to come and tell you what is. Even he started with very simple things like what is a byte and what is a field, and so many things he explained which we are not familiar. At least you get some basic understanding, knowledge about what this computer is, what it can do. But at the same time, he also said this cybercrime has become a very major menace, as Srimati likes to call it, a dragon which is engulfing all of us. Cybercrime, whether it's perpetrated against men or women, it is something about which we are all concerned and bothered about it, and we want to do something about it. And since it is a crime, the police get involved in this, because police are expected to solve all crime, whether it's a cyber crime or a robbery or a murder or a rape or anything, any crime comes under the purview of the police. So this is a new dimension. Maybe 50 years back, I don't think cybercrime was a cognizable major problem for the police people. And as the technology is progressing, as people have started using more and more technology-oriented crime, especially cybercrime, is becoming a very major issue. So we have now developed, introduced cyber law. I don't think 50 years back a lawyer who studied and got a degree in law would have done a cyber law as one of the papers or subjects, because it didn't exist. Cybercrime did not exist. How do you make a law for a crime which did not exist? As new crimes come into the scene, new laws need to be introduced to tackle the crime. So we can't wish away cybercrime, because in a gathering I addressed yesterday, technology is a double-edged sword. Technology can facilitate, and wherever we have come, we have been able to land on the moon. That is because of the development in technology. And nuclear energy is a development of technology. It can cure a person or it can kill a person. So technology can be a facilitating, promoting factor, or technology can be a major threat to humanity. So we can't wish away cybercrime, because we can't close down all the computers. I mean, before, in the banking sector, when they wanted to introduce computers, many people refused to learn to use the computer for banking transaction. They used to have, I don't know, you've seen big ledgers, huge ones, and women who are handling the counters, it used to be a great struggle lifting those big ledgers and then making entries, counting, recounting, checking and rechecking and all those things. Now with the availability of computer, you ask them to go back. The bank employees went on strike. They didn't want computerization of the banking system at one stage. Now you tell them, we'll remove all the computers, you do manually, they will go on strike again. So you have got so used to technology that you don't want to do away with it. Now, for example, I had a maid who used to help in the domestic help. And then when we first got the washing machine at home, said, "Madam, डर लगता है, मुझे उसको शॉक मार देगा, मशीन में नहीं डालेंगे, कपड़े नहीं डालेंगे, हाथ में कपड़े धो लो." And then after Santa one day, there was no power in the house. I said, "Hira Devi, हाथ से कपड़े धो के डाल दो." "नहीं मैम साहब, बिजली आने दो, उसके बाद कपड़े करेंगे." So this is what happens. Now once you get used to technology, you can't do without the technology. So we all got used to having a mobile. And then my husband always, everybody has got a earache, holding their ear and going and all. Even the vendor, my brother is very fond of telling this story. He lives in Bangalore. The coconut fellow who came to climb the tree, he went up, Saab, ಎಷ್ಟು ತೆಂಗಿನಕಾಯಿ ಇಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಹೇಳಿ ಮರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು he is asking my brother who is down below. So technology has become so indispensable for our lives. And then when I tell this, everybody comes with a story. My sister says, ಅವನು ಪ್ಲಂಬರ್ ಬಂದ, ಅದು 3ನೇ ಮಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಏನೋ ಕೆಟ್ಟೋಗಿತ್ತು, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅವನು, ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಸೊ he's interacting with the person from the 3rd floor using his mobile. So it has become such a common thing. We can't do away with technology. So what do we do? How do we build our capacity to handle this cyber crime? Cyber laws have been put into place. First one is acquire knowledge. This, I think there are experts in this field who can tell you about what are the cyber laws and what are the section and what are the punishments to be given, how to handle this, and all these things all can be learned, knowledge can be acquired. But the important point is acquiring the right attitude to use the knowledge that you have acquired. See, in life, I mean, not only here in terms of talking of a police or crime or anything, in life there are 3 types of problems. What is a crime? Is a problem which you want to solve. Am I right? All of you police people, crime is a problem that's given to you and you are expected to solve that problem. I find problems can generally be categorized into 3 categories. One problem is problem which is under my control. Now I draw 3 circles, 3 consecutive circles, inner circle, outer circle, and the outer circle. So the inner circle, which I call a green circle, is the problem which is under my control. If the problem is under my control, I can solve the problem. Agreed? All of you agree? If the problem is under my control, I can solve the problem. If the problem is outside my control, how do I solve the problem? For example, a very simple example I give, very, very silly example, because it drives home the point that I had to come to Mangalore. My flight was early in the morning at 6 o'clock from Delhi to Bombay, Bombay to Mangalore I had to come. And then my house is about a kilometer away from any civilization. We live in a very far off place. Normally, I would have called the taxi in the night and told him I have to go to the airport. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ನಾಳೆ ಏರ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ನಾನು, 5 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಕಾರ್ ಮನೆಗೆ ತನ್ನಿ. Somehow I totally forgot to book the taxi. But it's a 24-hour taxi service. I said, it's okay anyway, I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock. I can ask the taxi fellow to come at 5 o'clock, take me to the airport. 4 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಎದ್ರೆ, when I go to the telephone, my telephone is dead. Is the problem inside my control or outside my control? Outside my control. Then I have to catch the flight. What do I do? What did I do? What did I do? What would you have done in a situation like that? I don't have a mobile. Okay. Anybody want to get up and say what the solution, what did I do? Yeah, I went to my neighbor's place. I said, I'm sorry waking you up at 5 o'clock. Can I use your telephone and call the taxi? So the problem which was outside my control, I have brought it under my control, I have solved it. Very simple. So what you need to do is, any problem which you think is outside your control, bring it under your control, you have solved the problem. Very easily said, but not easily done, isn't it? So I'll tell you how do you bring the problem which is outside your control and bring it under your control. That is what I call is empowerment. Empowerment is an attitude of mind. Empowerment is an attitude of mind. And for me, the definition of empowerment is belief, faith that I can change my life. I can do things the way I want to do it. That is an empowered person. An empowered person is one who feels confident that they can do what they want to do and nobody can hold them back. If I want to do something, nobody can stop me from doing what I want. We have Shakuntala here, she's an activist, and she does what she wants to do. Nobody can hold her back. This is what all the activists do. They're not bothered. Who is holding you back? Nobody can hold me back from doing what I want to do. That I call is a empowerment, and empowerment is a very important component of capacity building. You want to know how to empower yourself? All of you are interested? I'll give you some simple strategies for empowering yourself by which you can change your life. First of all, you have to change your perspective. That's a very important thing. Attitude, your mindset. That from I can't to I can. This is a very important first step in empowering oneself, in capacity building for oneself, that you change your perspective from I can't to I can. See, when I was in NEPA, we had stenographers, and then we were computerizing the whole system there, and then we were throwing away all the manual computers, and they had to learn to use the computer. Many of them, especially women secretaries, no, we can't learn the computer. I don't know maths. You don't have to need to know maths to do the computer, but people think maths and computer are related. So they were all protesting, but then afterwards, slowly we changed, gave them encouragement and said, you can learn. Some 5-year-old kids are playing with computer. Why can't you learn to use the computer? Now they have learned to use the computer. One day there's no power. I asked them to type a letter on the manual computer. No, madam, let the power come. We'll do it on the computer. We don't know what to do it. So empowerment is you have to change your perspective from I can't do to I can do it. So let me give you a very, not related to police or anything, about your personal empowerment. Let me tell you a very small story. For me, the most empowered person is Mahatma Gandhi. Did he have any position power? Did he have any muscle power? Did he have any AK-47? Or did he have any money power? He was not even a forerunner member of the Congress, that's what he was saying. But believe that it is possible to achieve Swatantra without a war or a fight or anything. That did he overcome all barriers. An empowered person who is one who overcomes all barriers to achieve what one wants to achieve. So we are all not Mahatma Gandhis, and we can't do what he did. But I tell you the story of a very simple girl called Chandra. She's still there. And when she was 5 years old, she was paralyzed below the waist. A young girl comes from a very traditional Brahmin South Indian family, and she gets paralyzed below the waist. Then confined to the wheelchair. I want to study. So she went to school, completed school, and then she said, I want to go to college. Wheelchair Sanskrit, painting, music. I want to be a scientist. So she did her chemistry honors from Presidency College. Then she said, I want to do my PhD. She got admission in the Indian Institute of Science, and she did a beautiful PhD thesis, not a theoretical chemistry, a practical chemistry. She used to sit in the wheelchair and then go to the lab, and mother was very supportive. Amma ee bottle tegi attegi and experimental maadi. She produced a thesis and she got a PhD, and she was straight away appointed as an assistant professor of chemistry in IIT Madras I know her story because my husband was the director at IIT Madras at that time. So did she not have barriers? But she had the faith and the belief that she can change her life. Beyond that, she said, I'm a woman, I would like to have a child. Then she consulted the doctor. He said, gynecologically, nothing wrong with you. And she found a husband who was willing to marry her. Sitting in the wheelchair, she got married. Now she has got a 20-year-old son studying in engineering college. And she still works in the IIT. She's become a full professor now. I mean, a fantastic person who believed that it is possible to change one's life. And she did that because she changed her perception about her life. And then he changed her perspective. And to change your perspective, you have to change your thinking process. To change your thinking process, not enough. You have to show it in your behavior. All this Chandra did so that she transformed her life. Another important thing for you to become empowered to overcome barriers is to make things work for oneself. Here I have done a study and written a book on women and men in police. It's been published and Kiran Bedi released that book 2 years back. It's a case study of Delhi police. And I was interviewing one of the police women. She was an inspector of the J&K cadre. And then I believe she was telling us that they don't like women police to handle terrorists. But somehow she got an opportunity, and then someday she said they were going somewhere and they got a message that some 10 terrorists are holed up in some house, and then she had to go and tackle those terrorists, and then she didn't have enough police personnel. Things were urgent and she was in a very remote place, no time to get a police reinforcement. She had just some 2-3 constables with her, and she said, how do I tackle this situation? She got a bravery award also for that. And what she did was just ask these 3 policemen to go round and round the building and fire from all sides. So the militants who were holed up thought there was a big posse of police people firing from all the sides, and they came and surrendered themselves, and with 3